we have the secondary citizen to Simone Biles, that is Jordan Childs. Time Magazine's telling us that this isn't really the Women of the Year. These are the secondary citizens of the Women of the Year. At least when it comes to Asia Wilson and Jordan Childs.
You're not gonna believe this one. Nope, not even in your wildest dreams. Just when we thought Caitlin Clark had conquered it all, here comes Time Magazine with the most ridiculous move ever. And guess who's right in the middle of it? Asia Wilson. At this point, they're just making stuff up for fun. I had to double check if this was a prank, but nope, it's real. And trust me, you're gonna wanna hear every single detail. Buckle up, let's get into it.
From Asia, there's days where I'm struggling. It's moments where no matter how hard you work, it still feels like you're not getting the recognition. It still feels like somebody's got to say something to say. I needed them to understand that they help me in more ways than they'll ever know. It's hard showing up every day and wearing this crown. It's heavy. It gets extremely heavy. But at the same time, I'm going to fix it, make sure it's straight, and I'm going to go ahead and do my work.
So Times Magazine really thought they could just skip over Caitlin Clark for Women of the Year and nobody would notice? Like, seriously? We weren't supposed to see that? We weren't supposed to have questions? Caitlin Clark, arguably the most famous women's basketball player in the world right now. She's got record-breaking stats, the highest viewership numbers, and is literally dragging women's basketball into the mainstream all by herself. Yet somehow she's not even a nominee? But guess who is? Asia Wilson.
Dear friend, Caitlin Clark did not make the cut. Folks, don't overreact, don't get angry, don't get frustrated. Don't be surprised. I don't think anybody should be surprised by this. And this isn't Asia Wilson's fault. This is just Time Magazine doing what Time Magazine does.
Now let's break this down more because none of it makes sense. Caitlin Clark has single-handedly made women's basketball the talk of sports media. She's got NBA stars watching, celebrities tweeting, and TV networks begging for more of her games. When's the last time a college player had this kind of impact?
You know, Asia Wilson has been nitpicking with Caitlin Clark, almost like anything you can do, I can do better situation. And this is another case of that type of scenario because Time Magazine, let's pull it up right now. Now, I was stunned when I seen this, guy. I was definitely stunned when I seen this. As you guys can see here, Time Magazine has named Asia Wilson, and which Jordan Childs definitely deserved this. Jordan Childs Women of the Year.
And then there's Asia Wilson. The same Asia Wilson who, yes, is a great WNBA player, but let's not act like she's revolutionizing the sport. And yet, she's not just nominated. She's literally the face of the magazine, like front and center, big ol' cover star. Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark? Not even mentioned, not even a footnote. It's not even like Caitlin Clark had a good year. She had a historic year, breaking records left and right, selling out arenas, bringing in ratings that WNBA players can only dream of.
Oh, man. Asia. So you got your Time Woman of the Year cover. You're one of the 10 women, I guess, in sports that they're saying are Women of the Year. So you get your cover. Today is your day. What a day to celebrate.
And don't get us started on Asia Wilson acting like she's the face of women's basketball. The only time people talk about the Aces is when they're bullying other WNBA teams. Yet somehow, Asia gets all the flowers, and Caitlin, who actually moves the needle, gets absolutely nothing. Oh, and let's talk about viewership. Caitlin Clark's games are pulling in NBA-level ratings, while Asia Wilson's games are getting outviewed by reruns of The Price is Right. But she's Woman of the Year? Okay, Times. You see, what we're not going to do is sit here and pretend like this isn't the biggest snub of the year. This is worse than Leo DiCaprio waiting years for an Oscar. This is worse than when J. Cole lost Best Rap Album to Macklemore. This is disrespect at the highest level. Let's be real. Times Magazine fumbled. They thought nobody would notice. They thought Caitlyn's fans wouldn't say anything. But nah, they see it clear as daylight. Caitlyn Clark deserved that nomination more than anyone. And the fact that she wasn't even considered? That tells us everything we need to know about Times Magazine.
What are we talking about, man? All you gotta do is be a teammate of Caitlyn Clark, or have a rivalry with Caitlyn Clark, or have an incident dust up with Caitlyn Clark, or say something slick about Caitlyn Clark on Twitter.
Caitlyn Clark took the WNBA by storm. She changed the game, brought millions of new fans, and had the world talking about women's basketball like never before. Sold out arenas, record-breaking viewership, and straight-up dominance on the court. She was out here breaking records left and right, putting up numbers that had never been seen before. Yet somehow, someway, Times decided that A'ja Wilson is the Woman of the Year? A'ja Wilson? Really? The same A'ja Wilson who's been playing in the WNBA for years, but nobody outside of hardcore fans really cared? The same A'ja Wilson who wasn't packing out arenas, wasn't making casual fans tune in, and wasn't making people say, "Yo, I gotta watch the WNBA tonight?" That A'ja Wilson? Caitlyn Clark came into this league and instantly put it on the map. She made people care. Before her, people acted like the WNBA was just background noise at the barbershop. Now it's must-watch TV, and for that, she gets disrespected? She gets trashed on by players, analysts, and now Times Magazine? She gets overlooked for a player who's been there for years and hasn't moved the needle like Caitlyn?
Calculated that Caitlyn Clark was responsible for $36 million in economic impact to the city of Indianapolis, and that she is responsible for 27% of the entire WNBA's economic activity for this past season, including attendance, merchandise sales, and television. One player in a big league responsible for 27% of the economic impact and economic activity for the WNBA. One person more than a quarter of it. She's responsible.
Let's talk about adversity. Caitlyn Clark has had to deal with more hate than any rookie in the history of the WNBA. She stepped into the league, and immediately, people were out to get her. Players took cheap shots at her on the court. She was getting clowned by WNBA vets who were mad that she became the face of the league overnight. She had media members throwing shade, questioning if she was even that good. Meanwhile, A'ja Wilson. She gets praised left and right, like she's carrying the WNBA on her back, when in reality, Caitlyn Clark is the one doing all the heavy lifting. And let's not forget, Caitlyn Clark was still cooking through all of it. Broke records, made history, proved every hater wrong, and still, Times Magazine decided to overlook all of that and hand the award to someone who didn't even have half the impact Caitlyn had. What did A'ja Wilson do that was so groundbreaking? Win a championship? That's cute. Caitlyn Clark literally won the championship of making the WNBA relevant. That's way bigger than a trophy. A'ja Wilson winning Woman of the Year is like giving an MVP to a role player while the superstar carries the team.
Caitlyn Clark has officially surpassed a 25-year record. She became the fastest player in WNBA history to record 200 or more points, 75 or more rebounds, and 75 or more assists. Doing so in just 15 games, beating Shannon Johnson's record of 16. This is just another way to prove that she is without a doubt a generational talent.
But nah, let's reward the safe choice. Let's ignore the fact that Caitlyn Clark was out here dealing with a league full of players who had a personal vendetta against her just for existing. Let's act like she wasn't getting fouled so hard that NBA players were calling it out. Let's pretend like she wasn't under more scrutiny than any other WNBA player ever. Times Magazine fumbled this one. They had a chance to acknowledge the biggest game changer in women's basketball history, and instead, they went with the politically safe, let's not upset the WNBA veterans choice. Classic. And A'ja Wilson? She had no problem accepting the award, knowing full well that Caitlin Clark is the reason more people even know who she is now.
When you're talking about GOATs of the W, I need my name to be up there, at least top 3. Like, that's my goal, is like, I want something like, when you're thinking of women's basketball, when you're thinking of the W, I want my name to be on it.
Come on, tell them, Asia, tell them.
Takes, like, whatever it needs to get there, whether it's the rings, whether it's the accolades individually, like, I want to be up there in that category.
So this is the same Asia Wilson, right? The one who just a few months ago was throwing her own teammates under the bus, talking about how their locker room wasn't a championship locker room. The same Asia Wilson who, instead of taking responsibility as the so-called leader of her team, decided to publicly air out her frustrations like she was on a reality TV show? And now she's the face of Time magazine? What? Let's not forget, this is a player who, for one season, didn't get exactly what she wanted, and suddenly, it's everybody else's fault. Her teammates? Not championship material. The locker room? Not up to her standards. Oh, but when they were winning, when everything was all good, she was all smiles, taking the credit, acting like the queen of the WNBA. But the moment adversity hits, suddenly, she's got complaints. Interesting.
It wasn't a championship locker room, Wilson said. I mean, out of the gate, going into training camp, I was like, we ain't got it. Wow. Okay. That's crazy. I always told myself, we're going to get it. We're going to check each box, but we didn't. Oh, man.
Now let's do some math real quick. Asia Wilson is out here on Time magazine, getting celebrated like she's the greatest thing to ever happen to basketball. Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark, the actual biggest star in women's basketball, is out here getting disrespected left and right. Asia Wilson gets a magazine cover, but Caitlin Clark? Nah, they act like she doesn't even exist. Make it make sense. And don't even get started on this whole narrative they're pushing. Oh, Asia Wilson is breaking barriers. She's leading the way. Leading the way where? To what? A second-round exit? Because that's what happened last year when she was blaming her own teammates for not meeting expectations. Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark is literally breaking records every other game, setting attendance records, getting more viewership than most NBA games, and yet, she's the one they keep trying to downplay?
Today, where Asia Wilson, she kind of admitted that the Aces were not like championship ready this last season. She said specifically it wasn't a championship locker room. I mean, out the gate, going into training camp, I was like, we ain't got it. I always told myself every game, we're going to get there. We're going to check each box, but we didn't. And then she also went on.
And I actually just want to leave this here real quick. I mean, this to me, this shows no loyalty to your teammates. And this just shows, oh, so you felt like this wasn't the team to get to a championship.
It's honestly hilarious. Asia Wilson is out here getting magazine covers, and yet, when the league needed a superstar to actually bring in fans, she wasn't the one who delivered. That was Caitlin Clark. You know, the same Caitlin Clark who's been dealing with constant disrespect from the media, other players, and even the WNBA itself. But Asia? Oh, she's got Time magazine singing her praises. And let's not forget, Asia Wilson was the same one crying about not getting enough MVP recognition, talking about how she doesn't get the same respect as other stars. But respect is earned, not given. Caitlin Clark never had to beg for attention. Her game made people pay attention. Meanwhile, Asia has been in the league for years and is still out here complaining about respect. Maybe if she spent less time whining and more time elevating her game, she wouldn't have to beg for credit.
This is quite remarkable. I've never seen a professional league just actively attempt to tear apart their ultimate star. Washington Mystics owner Sheila Johnson wants to know why they couldn't have put the whole WNBA on the Time cover and called it the League of the Year. And of course, she said that because her argument is Caitlin Clark is not the only one that moved the needle for the WNBA.
The narrative never changes. Every single year, they try to tear down the best, and this time it's Caitlin Clark again. But here's the problem. This ain't last year. This ain't Iowa. This ain't college ball where teams could just rough her up and hope the refs let it slide. Nah, this is different. Caitlin Clark has an army now. She's got veterans like Dewana Bonner, who's seen it all and isn't here for the nonsense. Sydney Colson, who will clown these haters in real time and then drag them on social media after the game. And let's not forget Sophie Cunningham, who is basically the WNBA's enforcer. You touch Caitlin, Sophie's making sure you regret it.
First of all, do the Fever even have any more roster spots open? How many folks are you guys going to sign? What is painfully clear, and what I've talked about in my other videos, is that the league, the Fever organization are doing everything they should do to make sure their star is happy and that their star gets a ring. I didn't know they were going to load up like this, though. Dewana Bonner, Sydney Colson, just re-signed Kelsey Mitchell. You already have Aaliyah Boston. You have Caitlin. You have Lexi.
It's like having a personal security team on the court. And then there's head coach Stephanie White. A coach who knows what it takes to win with the Fever. A coach who's not about to let Caitlin Clark be disrespected like she's some random rookie. So when she's out here lighting up the league, putting up ridiculous numbers, and leading Indiana to wins, how exactly are they going to keep disrespecting her? What's the excuse going to be this time? Oh, it's just the regular season. She's playing with a good team. The league is carrying her. Nah, the only thing being carried is the big L these haters are going to take when Caitlin Clark is holding up a trophy at the end of the season.
Caitlin Clark will be legitimate WNBA MVP contender in 2025. The Indiana Fever star is building a historic rookie season to challenge A'ja Wilson for the 2025 MVP honors. Now, I told y'all, bro, Caitlin Clark is standing on business next to A'ja, bro. She wants that MVP trophy. She needs that trophy. She winning all the awards right now, but she needs that one on the list expeditiously.
And speaking of haters, let's talk about times. If she drops 35, they say it wasn't efficient enough. If she gets a double-double, they say she's stat padding. It's a never-ending cycle, and we're tired of it. And then there's A'ja Wilson. Oh, you thought we'd forget? Nah, she's part of the problem too. Acting like Caitlin isn't that good, like she hasn't been doing this for years. A'ja and her crew love to move the goalposts when it comes to Caitlin. When she wasn't in the league, they said she wouldn't be good enough. Now that she's dominating, they're still trying to find ways to discredit her. It's getting ridiculous. But none of it matters. Because at the end of the day, all Caitlin Clark is going to do is win. And what are they going to say then? How do you keep disrespecting someone when they're holding up the MVP trophy and leading their team to the finals? Simple answer, you can't. If you enjoyed, like and subscribe. More videos are on screen now.